Well, good morning, LeOnna. How
Good
are
morning,
you?
Lucinda.
Well, I want to start off today, since this is our second official podcast. I want to start off with a new tradition that's going to hopefully grow into our main tradition of sharing the where it started stories. And today I thought the best where it started story would be about our franchise, Coldwell Banker, where it started and how they started it, and to tell that story. Have you heard the story?
I have, but it's one of my favorite stories, and it's to me so nice to hear the genuine little nugget. What made them decide to create a company? What was it that you felt you could do different than what was already happening that gave you that impetus to start something new? I love our story.
So, and I love that it started, it started in San Francisco, coming right out of the earthquakes back. So it started in 1906. So we just had our 118th anniversary,
Yay.
which is exciting. And it started with an idea, but also with a vision. And I think that's every great story starts with, someone with a vision and a passion. Yeah. And so our founder, Colbert Coldwell, he already was in real estate sales, and he wanted to have a firm that could be trusted, because after the earthquakes, everyone was being told their properties were not worth anything, and basically their properties were being stolen out from under them by dishonest
at their most vulnerable time.
Yes. Where they've already gone through losing everything. There's been tragedy happening, and just how we've had happen in many histories of our marketplaces where tragedy has brought out the worst. So they became this trusted, guided light in this community of folks wanting to buy or sell properties. And he was looking to set up an honest and brokerage. So when someone saw his name, they would think, oh, I can trust him. So it actually started out, they had a different name. And I always forget this, that they were Tucker, Lynch, and Coldwell to start out with. And then he later on, a lot of us think that we started as a bank. I know people think confuse us with a bank, but it was actually the name of his partner that he eventually met was Benjamin Banker. So it became Coldwell and Banker. And they both had the same unique vision together. And it was, I always have throughout history, they've told me, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership, which is frustrating, because I started out with a partnership and I've had several business partners, but it can be scary. But I love, because they did stay partners.
Yeah.
And they did create something amazing, and they took it and they grew it. And now, they started with just that one little office and that one idea, and they were running it all by themselves, and then eventually grew into, I believe we're like 680 some offices now.
It's amazing.
Well, 680 companies, not offices. And then I don't have all the statistics, but it's a world, a national company.
I mean, giant, amazing. Yeah. And it just started because he wanted to do something real.
Exactly. Yeah. Just had an idea.
Be honest.
And was just a sales professional like many other agents out there, and then grew his company into something. So I feel like the beginning of having the idea is so important, but then taking that next step and, finding a partner and creating a vision behind it was so important.
Yes. In fact, Lucinda, you have done that, and not a lot of people have done that. And so you have to start somewhere. And sometimes that's where you get stuck, because you kind of don't know where to start, or what do I do? How do I start? I think I have a great idea. I know that I have my good soul behind it. What do I do? How do I even start?
So I've, thought a lot about this over the last couple of weeks as we're doing some restructuring in our own company. We've been getting ready, prepared to do business planning. You've come on as the COO, so I'm having to hand off the work, much like they had to at one point. Yeah. So I'm having to really be able to articulate my vision of where I want it to go from here. And that old saying is, what got you here won't get you there. So having to rebuild the ideas and looking at what expansion looks like and looking at what this growth looks like. So we're in a little bit different phase, but I looked back at where I started, and I started much like our founder. I was a sales associate and brand new to the industry. But my mentor made me do a business plan. And that's really where it started, was a business plan and an idea. And my idea was that within 4 years, I wanted to be an owner. But had I not had that plan as a sales associate, I don't know if that would have ever come to fruition. I don't know if it would have ever happened. But having that written business plan and going, okay, I'm going to start here on this little stepping stone, and I'm going to go from here to here to here to here. It helped. And that's what, much like what we're doing now, we're saying, okay, now the company's here and we want it to go there. What are all the little rocks we need to get to hop
to
from?
build our little road.
Yeah, to build our little road to get there.
Yeah.
So whether it is real estate or whether it's, a restaurant, or maybe you want to start a touring business, whatever it is, you have to start with a plan. You have your idea, you have your passion, you have your vision already, and that's what you bring to the table. Then most entrepreneurs stop at that business planning process. Sometimes they stop because they don't know they have the money, or they don't know if they have the time. There's many, many stories about how entrepreneurs have had to, get up at 3:00 in the morning to find the time while they're working their other job and taking care of their children. And my business grew when I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning because I had that time to put in that extra work. So I think when you build out a business plan and you go, okay, I want this, I want it, and they don't know where then the next step is. Going to the next step and finding where they're going to find the people to talk to. Just like you would, where are you going to get your clientele if you're opening up a hair salon? Where are they going to come from? Who are they? How are you going to market to them? So for agents, we have some standard pillars of marketing that we hit. They've got their database that they're going to do so many touches to and reaches to stay in front of them and see how they can help them. And then you can farm neighborhoods or demographic farms to find a certain type of clientele out there. So you can do mailers, you got social media, or you can buy leads. And for a lot of businesses, that's an option to buy leads. And I know insurance companies do it. There's even hair salons that do it. You can, where they generate leads. Well, it's just like we do with Google, like you pay for clicks. So there's all these different avenues. And so we lay all that out. Okay, we've got these 10 different ways that you can generate business. What can you afford?
Yeah.
This is what this costs. This should generate this many people. This is what this costs. This should generate this many. And so then we start getting into the budgeting aspect of it. And this is most entrepreneurs' least favorite part of business is numbers. So if you're a real estate agent, hopefully you have a talented manager or someone in your your office that will help you do a budget and do numbers. And I love it if an agent will be really open and honest and do a personal budget first, because you're starting out as an entrepreneur of one.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to tell you, I've been in this industry for 18 years, Lucinda. And as a leader, you're the only one that has talked about setting out a business plan. You're the only leader. You make it really part of onboarding.
Well, where did you work before? They need a coach. I need to go coach them right now.
John L. Scott. That was my starting spot.
I coach somebody at that office now, so I'm going to tell her he can call me.
Yes, get a business plan. And I have worked with some very big companies for some good lengths of time. And it really, I guess it wasn't it could have been up to me to go get a business plan and do it. But you really do, in this industry, there are so many things to tackle. I think anytime you're starting something new. So when you have a leader or somebody like you that sits down, number one, having you as a coach that has been there in the trenches and then is certified with Tom Ferry, being one of his top coaches, just having you readily available to us already is a realm different. But then that you care enough. I think that's the thing. I don't want to just keep, but it really is important. You care enough and you seriously talk to us about the business plans. Where are you going? What are the pillars? As leaders, these are things that we truly, genuinely care about. And it makes a difference. It's because it makes a difference.
Well, and what I think is interesting about that topic, though, is in our organization, okay, we have, I'm laying that foundation for our agents. But that foundation was laid for me by my franchise too. They did a business plan with us. And before I opened another office, they wanted to see my business plan for the next office. And so that accountability there, but you don't always have that when you're a solo entrepreneur out there. And even agents, sometimes, like you said, are at companies that don't have that, or maybe they're an agent that wants to open up their own company and they don't have a mentor, or they don't have a roadmap of how to build that, how to put those stepping stones in place. So I love the concept behind having this podcast and putting videos out there to talk, because I think that's what's missing for a lot of entrepreneurs out there is they just don't know where to start and they don't know how to do the plan. So whether you're doing a plan for real estate or for any other business, that's where you've got to start. And a budget is such an important aspect. The numbers are so important. And I was one of those entrepreneurs that I didn't so much care about the money. I mean, I needed to feed my family. I certainly was not independently wealthy. I grew up very humbly and I started a very humble place, and definitely starting out in the middle of the recession, went through some very tough times with finances. But if I didn't have some concept of where I wanted to go with my finances, I would just be floundering and maybe make poor decisions on where I spent my money. And Tom Ferry says a lot of time, he says there's check equity or there's sweat equity. And for some entrepreneurs, they can afford that check equity right up front, and they can buy leads or they can do massive advertising that's going to get them the results they want right away. But for a lot, they're starting out with a very small budget that they can't take from their savings to do some of those more aggressive types of getting their business. So then comes in, that's why the why is so important, because you need that motivation behind you to be willing to put in that sweat equity, which is very uncomfortable things a lot of times that you have to do.
Well, and I will tell you, had I had you when I started, I would not have had so many ups and downs in this industry. I would have had a much more solid growth because I didn't have that next step to know where to put my money, my energy, my time. I did a great job of taking care of the family. Yeah. I really would have liked a more solid growth.
If I knew then what I know now, so if I had the future me and the past, we'd be a huge company now.
We would be Coldwell Banker.
So I'm still learning. But what I found too along the way is I did have some mentors, but they had not had the same growth mindset as me. So there was a hard shift about 5 years ago in my business and in my personal life where I had to realize it wasn't just about my plan and what I did during the day. It was about the people I surrounded myself with. And that is a really tough one for entrepreneurs because you do end up giving up some of the people in your life that maybe are saying, why are you doing this? Why are you getting up at 3:00 in the morning? Why don't you just get a normal job? Why don't you just let that go? That just stresses you out. And part of it is that they do genuinely care about your well-being and how much time you're having to sacrifice for your vision. But a lot of it is they themselves don't want to grow, and it makes them uncomfortable to see you doing it. And they may not even consciously know that, but they will continue to be they call the crabs in the bucket.
Yes.
They don't want you to leave them.
Yeah,
and so have you ever watched crabs in a bucket? The ones in the bottom keep pulling the ones getting out down. That's why they never get out of the bucket. Yeah. So sometimes you have to, let those crabs go and you have to pull away from them. And that was the hardest shift for me because I had friends, I had mentors, I had mastermind groups even. And it wasn't that they were bad people. No. They were just at their growth capacity. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that they necessarily even were trying to do anything maliciously. Sometimes it turns into that because they can't help themselves. Right. But oftentimes it's just that they're not in a place where they want to grow. And they don't want to be made uncomfortable by your vision and your energy towards your growth. So taking some inventory too of who you're surrounding yourself with is an important portion of your business plan. It's like, am I surrounding myself with a growth-minded mentor? Am I surrounding myself? I hear agents and other business owners constantly saying, I'm going to partner up. Well, that's why a lot of partnerships don't work. is one will be growth minded and the other one won't.
Interesting. Yes.
And so they'll constantly keep struggling like the crabs in the bucket, pulling the other one down. And then they get frustrated, and then there's friction, and then there's like, you don't want to make your partner uncomfortable. So, I mean, we see it in marriages. We see it in, with siblings, and you'll have one really growth-minded one and one isn't. And so they argue all the time.
Right. And they're both okay.
Yeah, they're okay.
They together don't work so well.
There is some folks that are perfectly happy to stay where they're at and do what they're doing. And that makes the world go round.
Yes.
But that's what makes an entrepreneur so unique.
Yeah.
Is they are not comfortable staying where they're at, and they want to take this idea to the next level. So in your business plan, think about where you're spending your time and who you're spending it with, and once you have your plan and your vision and your mission and your goal and your numbers and all that, it's finding the right people that are going to help hold you accountable, that are going to mentor you, that are going to inspire you. And that was a big shift in my business when I found a coach that was bigger than I was, for one, that already had gone through some of the big growth and that was still wanting to grow.
Right.
And then he would mentor me to get to where he was. And by the time I got there, he'd passed me up and gone farther. Right. So probably I'm helping motivate him because he's like, don't you catch up with me. Right. So we help motivate each other. But I have definitely, sadly, been in groups where I've had to say, they're stopping growing. And as much as I love you, you're not going to help me grow anymore. I'm the biggest one in the room. So I need to go and get in a room which is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you have to go to peers that have done more than you, that are smarter than you, that are bigger companies than you, that sell more real estate than you, and hopefully, and you're getting around those with the spirit and the mindset of helping others. And that's not always the case with every person that may be doing better. Like, I know agents are going to watch this and be like, yeah, well, that top producer doesn't want to share their secrets with me. But for me, I'm fine sharing my secrets with even my competitors. Yep. Because it's about giving back to the other person. I'm going to keep growing. So even if you do what I did and you catch up to me, I'm going to that'll motivate me to keep moving on forward.
Because we can both grow. Nobody says if I grow, you can't
grow. So
grow.
I hope that we have developed a culture in our organization where our agents will always do that, where our leaders will do that for each other, and our staff members, all of that everybody is not thinking, oh, don't get better than me, because then I have to worry about my job or I won't get as many sales. Yeah. But no, come up to where I am, and then it's going to motivate me to keep going higher and doing more.
Absolutely.
So that process of giving back. So kind of back to the structure of a business plan, you have we do the budget, and then we decide what can be afforded, and we make sure that it's sustainable. Yep. And that then we want to measure. And once we start executing on that plan, is it working? Are they doing all the things? And I won't get into every pillar of activity that has to be performed, but each pillar of marketing for an agent has 5 or 6 tasks associated with it that have to be done every day and every week and every month and every year. And so it's executing on all those little things. So that's when a mentor is really important, because they're going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to, farm a community, or I'm going to social network. And that sounds great, but then where do you start? So then we go back to the little task, the little checklist that has to be done underneath. And that's when a mentor goes, okay, well, when you farm, this is where you start with that. And this is what you do here. And this is what your mailer should look like. And this is what you should do to follow up.
Yep. And if you don't have a great coach, I will tell you, there is one thing that I always did. And every time I wanted to level up, every time I wanted to increase my business, I would go find those high producers. And maybe some didn't want to talk to me, and I would just understand. And then I would just keep going until I could get there. Or if I realized, oh my gosh, now my business is up, how do I control my communications or my email? I would go to somebody where they were really good at that. And I interviewed everybody. I talked to everybody. I didn't care what agency they were with, but I wanted that information. So if you don't have a mentor, which would be preferable, but if you don't, that information is out there, and you're a seeker, go get the information, but with a plan, now you know the information.
Can you imagine,
that you need.
Though, when Coldwell and Banker started, there was no internet. There was no YouTube. There was no Google.
There were phones, right? Maybe.
So they had each other, and I don't even.
Was that tins at that point?
They didn't have cell phones. They didn't.
1906.
They barely had cell phones when we started, LeOnna.
I know.
They barely had them. I had the first smartphone in my office. So think about.
Was it in a suitcase?
Yeah,
was that one of those
if you didn't have a computer, your computer stayed at your desk. Your computer didn't go with you. So it's like the entrepreneur has so many more tools than they used to. Yeah. And a mentor is at, the push of a cell phone button now, where you can literally go on and find a mentor online. And even if that person's not mentoring to you, you've got the podcast where they're mentoring to you. You've got YouTube. You've got TV shows. You've got all kinds of motivation out there, and audiobooks and books. Well, they had books back then, but there wasn't a lot telling you where to start, where to go. A lot of it came within. That's why I love the stories from the past of when they couldn't even hear the stories of what others were doing because they were stuck with just what was local to them. They didn't get to hear podcasts from someone doing the same thing that they're trying to do all the way around the world. They didn't have coaches that were sharing with them. They just had their motivation, their ideas. And we are so fortunate to have so much more.
When did Tom Ferry and like the Brian Buffinis, when did they really start coming to light?
I remember Tom's career started but around the same time that mine did. So, but Buffini started before that even. And there was, Tom's father is a real estate coach and has a coaching company, and they've been around for a long time, but the accessibility to them was more isolated to an in-person conference. Yeah. You didn't have all these other, and they'd maybe write a book and you'd get there. I actually found in the back of my drawer, I should send a picture to Tom, his original Breakthrough by Design. And it was CDs, but I do know that even before that was, cassettes. And before, and books, and that would be what you got, is you got maybe a couple cassette tapes. When I started, that's what it was. I got handed a little thing of cassette tapes from a motivational real estate coach, and they're just going to tell you how to be a salesperson. And then we got to where we'd watch, VHS videos, and then, CDs came out and all that. I mean, that's how long we've been doing this, really. Yes. And, or maybe you got a little booklet of how to sell or something. Yes. But it wasn't much.
I know. And then before then you had just printouts, right? And a little book that you would take with the listings.
When I started, they did have the MLS online, but it didn't. It hadn't been very long before that it was a book that they printed in each office, and there was no lock boxes on the doors. You had to go to the individual offices and get the keys. Yes. You had to send your offers by fax or drop them off in person.
Even when I started, I remember doing a lot in person, driving around, getting signatures and driving paper back. I remember at one time I thought I was so cool because technology allowed me to have a little portable printer. It's just a rock in the world.
We'll have to do a special one on the histories of what it used to be and find some antique artifacts of real estate. I'm sure we still have some carbon copies of the contract in the back. But it's changed so much how we could make contact. You couldn't just email someone. You couldn't have social media. Social media has been a huge tool for the entrepreneur to expand their network and to market themselves. And the internet has been amazing for that. But with that has come a lot more competition, right? Absolutely. Because before it was so based on the relationships you had, and your relationships had no contact with anyone else hardly, because you didn't have all those avenues of them being marketed to. Yeah. Now we have so many more ways that they're going to used to be just, you had your sign up in town and they saw you at social functions and you knocked on their door and you went out for tea and coffee, and now there's so much more to it where the consumers getting marketed to, that the entrepreneur they have to be a little bit of a scholar in everything. They have to know about the internet marketing. They have to know about Google. They have to know about YouTube. They have to know about social media. I mean, they have to have I look at agents. I just came back from a sales conference, and the amount of knowledge that they felt they needed to absorb to be successful in our industry anymore was just overwhelming.
Yeah. And again, I keep coming back to us and what you've created here, Lucinda. It is so different because, and I don't know why, but I just feel that it is so outstandingly different because when you come here, I don't have to be an expert on YouTube. I don't have to be an expert on the marketing and stuff like that, because you've given me a chance to get those worries and those stress off of my plate. Because just being a really good agent and really understanding those contracts, the negotiations, and being able to have the genuine conversations and connections with people.
But that's why I love like talking about the history of where real estate was, because that was my vision. Is I wanted to create a system and an organization where we filled in all the gaps to let agents go back to being able to focus on the personal relationship, because I feel like that gets lost in every business nowadays is that personal relationship. I was just calling to get my car worked on today, and I was thinking about that, you know, the personal relationship that person, he's been there for a long, long time. And then now he's got, you know, all the cars, you know, used to just have engines. Now they have computers inside them. And so he's like, no, I have a computer technician guy and I have a transmission guy and I have a guy that does this. And he's like, you used to just have a mechanic. And he was like almost in tears on the phone because they've got the service department's out sick. And he's like, you know, I remember the days when we just had our mechanic. And he's like, and I could have just told you, well, I've got 5 mechanics and one of them is going to be able to help you, you know, tomorrow. But he's like, no, I have to have a computer specialist and a rotator specialist. Like, I don't even know. I'm not, obviously don't know how to build cars, but you know, so that's what we have though, is like, that was my vision. Instead of having to have an agent get their license and say, okay, now you must be a specialist. You must be a graphic designer. You must be a videographer. You must be a photographer. You must know how to start your own podcast and YouTube channel and social media and TikTok. And you must learn,
learn every contract.
And you need to know 5 different kinds of computers, and you need to know how to open up all these new lockboxes. You need to use 10 different MLSs, because we don't just have a book now. We have 10 different MLSs. So what we've created is we have videographers, we have photographers, we have admin support that will know a lot of the different systems for you and help you with your computers. We have social media specialists, we have graphic designers, we have folks that went to school and that was their passion. And what I saw when I got into the business is all those things were not my passion.
Yeah.
And I got lost in kind of almost angry at the industry for a while, because I was having to do a lot of things that were not what I enjoyed, which I'm not going to say that you take, everybody here is not like, hoo-hoo, I'm just getting to do everything I love today. No. And there's a lot of folks that say, well, you know, I really love building out a flyer, or I really like making a social media post. And that's some of their creativity and their passion is still there, but they don't have to do it if they don't want to.
Yep.
And
that's
that
huge.
Every time I'd finally learn something, they'd change it. And I'm not saying our system is perfect, but that's my vision that we've made progress on, and we'll keep making progress on, because I want our agent entrepreneurs to be able to have a plug and play system for their business, so that they can come in and they can build up a lasting clientele. They'll have mentorship and coaches, and they can do that. And there's that's what the whole concept of a franchise was at the beginning. That's why they have restaurant franchises, is that when you want to open a restaurant, you don't have to come up with everything on your own. Or you want to open up a gym, there's a gym franchise. And so, but then some entrepreneurs, they want to create their own. They want to take their own. They don't want to be stuck with a blue sign. They don't want to be stuck with a purple sign. They don't want to have, you know, so many, you know, treadmills and so many. They want to create their own concept. And then it gets a little harder because they don't have a plug and play system.
Right.
And some agents don't want that either, but that's why I wanted to create an environment where they could still have creativity to be an entrepreneur and be their own, build up their own ideas and visions, but not have to do all the work themselves.
Yeah, give support.
As when you're new and starting out, you can't go hire 20 different people to run your business. So that's what we've developed here. But so think about it. If you're not a real estate agent or you're another business, you've got to know how are you going to, sometimes you have to be 10 different people to start with.
Yeah.
And then I know even when I took over the franchise, I had to be 10 different people because I couldn't afford to hire an admin and videographer. You know how many times I went out and actually took pictures for agents of their listings because they didn't know how to use their digital camera, because it wasn't that long before I started that you were taking photos and you had to go get them developed and then you had to go put them on the internet or put them in a flyer. I actually think there was still agents doing that when I started.
I'm
18
sure
years ago.
Yeah.
All that technology was fairly new. So that's for everybody in every industry. All of that is changing constantly.
And it comes back to the basics,
Yeah,
like you were talking about that business plan.
Yeah, you got to go back to the beginning. Yeah, you have to go back to the beginning. You have to go back to what your vision, your mission, your why. And then we have to create those different pillars and rocks. Like I can't go back to Coldwell and Banker's plan and say, oh, now I have their secret thoughts, because what they did then, what got them there is not going to get me there.
No.
You know, what they did is not, and what we did last year in our marketplace is not going to get us.
No. Different world.
Yeah, it's a different world. It's a different market now.
So reassessing that business plan on an
constantly
annual basis.
Reassessing. Yeah. That's where we know we come full circle.
Yeah.
Is back to the once you finish your plan, you've done the homework, you've done the research, you've figured out, you've done your budget. Now you're executing on it. Now you have to evaluate what's working.
Yeah.
And measuring that and I like to do with my coaching clients, with my agents, I go back and review, is this working? And in any business, you have to do that. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this marketing to get this clientele in. I'm going to run these classes to get people into my gym, whatever it is, your business is, you have to reassess frequently. I like to do it every 30 days. Every 30 to 90 days, you're reassessing those pillars. Some of them take longer, like farming takes a long time before you see results, because you're starting at a very cold relationship point where they're just getting a piece of mail from you. And you've got to build from a piece of mail to a relationship of where they want to trust you with their asset. Yeah. And that takes longer to measure. So some things we're going to measure every 30 days. Some are going to be every 60, every 90. Some of them we're going to measure on a yearly basis. And we're going to say, you do this for a year. And then we're going to reevaluate, what did you get out of it? How frequently did you do it? What were your marketing pieces? And you're going to have to do that in every pillar of your building your business. You're going to have to reevaluate. You're going to have to adjust your budget sometimes. But one thing that for real estate, and I'm sure it is for every business, there's always a new shiny tool. There's always a new shiny ball.
A new promise.
A new promise, yes. And that's the hardest thing, is not thinking that you found the holy grail around every corner in every sales call, that something new is going to change your business. And it just isn't. There isn't any magic pill for any building business.
We could say there was, but if there was, everybody would be a successful real estate agent,
well,
or a successful this or that.
It's all goes back to what you put into it, is what you get out of it. And you're going to have to consistently put the work in, whether you focus on a social media marketing plan, whether you focus on a social networking marketing plan, whether you focus on a farming plan, or you buy leads, even buying. A lot of agents think, well, I'll just buy leads. I have, a few $1,000s. I'm just going to buy leads and then I'll be successful. You have to know how to nurture them.
Yes.
You have to have a follow-up process. You have to have time to answer your phone all the time. You have to have, there's still a process and work involved in doing that. There's just no magic pill.
No. And I think there's just got to be a commitment to the work. That is one thing that I was always successful, because I always had a commitment to work. I could have been more successful with more of an outline, a business plan, and knowing my steps and knowing where I wanted to go. I always just wanted to do the most business possible, and I was always very successful, but I put in the hours and I answered my phone pretty much 24/7. And I took every class I could possibly get, interviewed every successful agent I possibly could interview. Yeah.
You have to, what's working for you though might not work for me.
No, but you got to work.
You have to work.
That's the thing.
That's why that constant reevaluation of what your process is, and is it working? Is it getting you the results? And it all goes back to, are you building the relationships? Are you getting in front of people? Are they believing in you and trusting you? Are you building strong, lasting relationships to where they're going to come back to you? So there's so many aspects of the business.
And I do think that relationships, and I just think any business you do, The relationships, it's so interesting because there can be this misconception when you're trying to build a business and you are going out and you're creating these relationships. You're not going out asking them for business. No. It's just getting to know people genuinely and caring, and then keeping in touch and keeping that communication. So when those opportunities or time arise that maybe you do have the service they need, they know you enough, trust you enough, and know how to reach you, right? That they will reach out to you. And it's real relationships.
I think that is true in every business. It's about building that trust and that relationship, knowing you're going to have that consistency. Like, think about your hairdresser, the restaurants you like, the gym you go to, the car service you have, all of the services and businesses that we work with. It's about consistency and trust in relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to build when we build out a plan. So when you build out your business plan, that's what you're going to have to look at to lay that foundation. And then you've got all these other little aspects and tools, the tracking and the measuring and the budgeting but it's got to go back to building that trust and relationship and that consistency in your business, mm-hmm. whether it's real estate or whatever it is.
Well, and I do think having a business plan builds trust in yourself. Because in a certain sense, then now I have somewhere to go. I can check where I'm going and if I am on track, or if all of a sudden I've detoured off into the woods, because I actually have a map. Yeah. I've got somewhere to go.
I mean, look at even like schools, like choosing a school. Like for my daughter, I looked at what was their reviews, what was their consistency, what were the things that they were measured by, their academics, their sports programs, like what made them the best. And it was different for me than it might be for another parent. But it's still going to go back to that tracking and measuring of their consistency, their relationships, the trust that they've developed in the community, where you're going to, how that's going to fit into the need that I have. So when you build out a business plan for your real estate business, what is that consumer looking for? What is the audience you're looking to gain, and what are they looking for value? What do they need in an agent? What do they need help with? How do you build a relationship with them? What's important to them? Mm-hmm. And I think we get pegged as sales agents a lot, but if you look back at Coldwell and Banker, they found a need, and the need was someone they could trust. Yeah. It wasn't about who had the prettiest sign. It wasn't about who answered their phone fastest. It was about, is this person going to rip me off? Yeah. And so the people coming in their door were looking for an individual they could trust, in a device they could trust, and someone that cared and had that empathy for them, which I think a lot of the consumers are looking for that. And some of them might be looking for, that more technical hit. So I encourage anyone out there looking, because it's like at the end of the day, yes, I want somebody that's going to teach my child, good things and take good care of her and make her safe. But I want to be able to trust them. Yes. I'm leaving them with my most precious asset. Can I trust these people? Yep. Can I trust this organization? And what is your home is one of your second most valuable asset, is where you house your family and protect your family and feed your family. And you've probably invested the most money you've ever invested in your life in this item, which now they're asking for your help with buying or selling that. So they need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to confidently know you're going to keep them safe and give them the right advice. And so agents building out their plan, they get lost in all the noise of sales, when you still have to have those very basic foundations and people, and be able to provide them.
Yes. And people work with people they know.
Yes.
People they trust. And they can't trust you if they don't know you. Oh. And so it is, you're talking about those pillars, creating those relationships. Yes. They can't trust you just because you say, trust me.
Well, and how do you want them to perceive you? Yeah. Because what you put out there is what they're going to judge you on, whether they can trust you or not. Yeah, what does your social media say? What is your image of a person say? We just had this conversation, how important that is. It's so that important. They feel like they also have rapport with you. So they have something in common with you. So you're identifying the true you. And you really have to think about what you say and what you affiliate with. Like I said, the people you surround yourself with too are important when you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business. When you're not just coming and going to work for someone, you have this whole audience that's looking at you and saying, is this the person I'm going to trust? Is the person that's going to work hard for me? Are they honest? Are they hardworking? Are they responsive? All of those things that the consumer is looking for. You have to embody all of that and be able to put that out there in an image where they can, at a glance, decide this is someone that they want to build a relationship with, to trust.
And so I guess one of those things that I just want to say out loud is be genuine and be who you are genuinely, but just be who you are. And don't maybe talk about politics or religion or things that may be very divisive. Religion, maybe you have a nice network of people that are
maybe you're going to have your niche.
Yes.
Like some agents can afford to have
true.
a niche area where they work
Yes.
in. I, as a company owner, I feel like I have to provide a wide variety of opportunities for everyone, and I can't get us too stuck in one niche because my agents are all looking at different communities and niches. I think it's really important though, is like, and I appreciate that Coldwell Banker, they were founded on trust and integrity, and they kept going back to that. Maybe they've supported different organizations and they've had agents that did different things and leaders that did different things and had different, but when you go back to the foundation of it. So when you're building out your business plan, and Tom had this too, and they always ask me why is that in there? My vision, my mission, my why. Your mission is important. Like, what do you want to be known as? What do you want it to look like? What do you want the consumer to think of when they look at you? Like when people talk about brands are so much more than a logo. A brand, that's a whole episode unto itself about branding, but it's so much more than that. Your brand is who you are and how people are going to perceive you, and they're going to decide on that image if they want to build a relationship with you. And without those trusted relationships, you don't have a business.
And sometimes when we bring in things that are maybe emotionally private, I'm going to make a decision about who I'm going to vote for or how I'm going to pray or who I'm going to pray to, I don't want that to define me necessarily, because again,
it might get in the way of like the most important thing, which is about trust.
Yes.
And are you going to do a good job for them? All that stuff aside. And so we get too much noise in there. Yes. And that's why for me, my vision for the agent was to remove a lot of the noise, take care of a lot of that busy work stuff for them so they could focus on just building a really trusting relationship with the consumer and providing really good service and not feeling like they have to put themselves, I'm not super private person about everything, but there's certain things that you just don't want that noise out there for the consumer to see, because you want them to focus on what's really important.
And it doesn't really define you.
Yeah.
Right? There's
too much noise in a lot of our marketing. There's just too much noise in the whole process of sales a lot of times that we simplify it a little bit. And that's what a business plan helps you do, is you go back to, does this align with my original vision? Does this align with my original goal? Is this a tool I need? Is this a marketing campaign I need? Is this something I need to endorse? Is this something I need to talk about? Or does this align with my original goal?
Because maybe saving animals, is something that you really do believe in, and it is important to you. And
I think it's important to have your passion in it, but look if your passion's going to align with your goal.
Yeah.
And so if your goal is like, I want 1,000 new people in my database that are going to trust me, call me, know me, all that stuff, it's like, well, then your work that you put out there needs to embody that, needs to contribute towards that goal. So I think that the business plan is something that could be pulled apart and really focused on each aspect of it in its own and along, but the Reader's Digest version of where you start, I believe, is your plan, those key components of that plan, whether you're a real estate agent or whether you're open, there's plans out there, outlines of business plans available online for free. If an agent works for our company, we provide that, right? If you coach with Tom Ferry, he provides that. If I'm sure all those other companies out there that are mentor companies provide some kind of plan. We've been doing ours, which looks very different than what some companies I coach, their model of a plan looks like. But those key components that we just talked about are always there. Even if the format looks different, even if the language is a little bit different, those key components are there, and you have to keep going back and reviewing them. And I always tell agents, like, a business plan could be one page,
right?
But it's got to have those key components on it. It's hard to do a budget in one page because you really have to have all the numbers on there.
So the key components again for your business plan.
So we start with that vision, that mission, the why. The why is really important.
Why is super important.
And the vision of where you want to go, what you want to get out of those three things I believe are really important. You can get into different things about what you want your brand to look like, and oftentimes the business plans do. But those three things I think are really important. Then the numbers of how to get there.
Yes.
So then we've got to go for agents. That's that transactional side of it. So we can get down to how many people, what are we trying to do to get in front of them, your budget, and your pillars of marketing of how you're going to get there. I don't even like to always call them marketing, because sometimes they're just activity goals.
Yeah.
What are those pillars of activity goals? Because maybe it's not necessarily marketing, it's just an activity that's going to get you that conversation and build that relationship. So those are the basic four. There's always some other little exercises we can do in there. We can do our SWOT analysis, our strengths, our weaknesses, all of that. We can do some personal evaluation in there too, of like where we want. I think that's missing from some entrepreneurs, is they'll work real hard on their business, and they focus so much on their business, their personal life suffers, and they're missing balance. Yeah. So that's something I'd love to dive into on a episode about just creating that balance in your plan and in your life. But it's hard when you're a new agent starting out, because you really have to pour a lot. There's a lot of sacrifice in that beginning stage. Yeah. That you have to pour a lot in and put a lot more in than our goal is. Every time we do your plan, is getting you to that place a little bit more where you're getting your life and your balance back, and you've put in that sweat equity in the beginning. And then even sometimes the check equity, we want that to start shrinking as you build stronger relationships, and you build up those referral businesses, and you build up, and then you get team members that help you. All of that, just this layering effect of getting you to a really good balanced life.
And sometimes I think that entrepreneurs can start so much with an end product. I want my logo, I want my brand, and you start here, and you've built a brand before you even know the base of who you are. And sometimes that base, the business plan, the pillars are going to help you define then the brand that you want. So don't start backwards. I think for me, hearing this podcast, if I were listening, it would help me a lot, because I think it would really help me understand how I can start and actually have a better possibility or probability for success, because I would have a way to track it. I would have a way to go back and look at what I'm doing, if it's being effective. I would have had a way to have outlined my finances. So I hope it's hopeful.
Well, we talked about a lot this being your first business plan where you start, but as you go and year over year, you will do a business plan every year. You don't just start with one. Every year you do it again. And what helps with that is then you have something to look back on. Yes. Once you have 2, 3, 4, 5 years in business, just like any business, you're going to have benchmarks and numbers to track. And you're going to be able to build on that. And each year you're going to be a little bit more successful in your layout, because you're going to say, okay, I did these 4 things last year and they got me this, but now I want 20% more than I got last year. So now I have to do a little bit more, and I have to find out how can I develop a better system for this? Or did this work? Now I have to replace it with something else because it didn't work. Right. So it'll change the longer you do it, and the more you do it, you can look back on that history. And pretty much anybody that coaches with me, they know they're going to have a business plan, because I know the power of having that plan from the beginning to the end and continually doing it year over year over year. Yeah.
Well, and somebody as successful as you, it's really good to have somebody to turn to, because you have done that. You're a living
sharing
experience.
my roadmap of where I got where I was, but there's certainly folks that want to go way past where I went, but it's the same formula. It's just going to look a little different.
Yeah.
The items and goals of activities are going to look a little bit different to go to the next step.
I love it. And I think just wrapping up, there were some things that you said that just kind of want to reiterate. I loved the thing, because I don't think we talk about it often enough, is choosing the people that you have around you. And sometimes to go to that next level is going there first, going to the people that maybe already are that, and trying to learn what they do. Surround yourself with who you want to be. And not that you can't love the other people, but just choose where you spend your time, because that energy makes a difference.
Make sure they're bringing value and they're not a crab in the bucket dragging you.
Yes. No crabs in the bucket.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was really, for me, really fun. I hope you had a good time.
I did. I always love to talk about goal setting, because that's right around the corner for everybody.
Yeah, it is. Well, we hope you guys had a great time. And if anyone out there has an entrepreneurial story they would like to share with us, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you.